the government and Turkey backing rebel forces. Our diplomatic correspondent James Robbins has the very latest.
Moments before the shooting, behind Russia's ambassador, his assassin waits calmly, arousing no suspicion. And then this. The audience scream, the gunman is shouting, Allahu Akbar, God is greatest. And don't forget about Aleppo, he screams, don't forget about Syria. So long as these places are not secure, you won't taste security yourselves. With the ambassador lying close by, his killer shouts at the audience to stay back. Get away, only death will take me from here. Eventually, Turkish security forces do intervene and the gunman is shot and killed. Amid chaos at the art gallery in Ankara, Moscow was getting first reports of what had happened to their ambassador, Andrei Karlov. He was 62 and had been a diplomat for 40 years, Russia's ambassador to Turkey since 2013. The foreign ministry in Moscow confirmed the ambassador's death. It's a shocking blow to Russia's relations with Turkey. The countries back opposite sides in Syria's war, with Turkey strongly opposed to Syria's President Assad. James Robbins, BBC News.
Our Turkey correspondent Mark Lowen is in Istanbul for us. Mark, reports are coming in even that Russia's intervention in Syria is unforgivable. Don't forget Syria, don't forget Aleppo, saying anyone who interferes in Syria cannot be safe, and saying that he will only over my dead body will he leave there. So he's making a specific point there. He is, it seems, condemning Russia for its involvement in Syria. And the question now is he related to a group that Russia can punish in a military way, or was he operating on a freelance basis, a lone wolf? Impossible to say at this stage, but certainly a lot of thought has gone into this, and he's got a speech prepared in which he's making that point. Now, the other observation, just quickly, Kay, is that Turkish-Russian relations, and the mayor of Ankara has already come out and said this was a deliberate attempt to ruin Turkish-Russian relations. So Turkish government already, or Turkish authorities already saying what they think the aim of this was, and that would make some sense, because the Turks and the Russians fell out massively back in November last year when the Turks shot down a Russian jet. Relations plunged into the deep freeze for months after that, and they have painstakingly tried to put them back together. And you remember when the Turks went into northern Syria to push the Kurds back and give themselves a kind of buffer zone, they did that cooperating closely with the Russians. They got permission from the Russians, but also, crucially, the ceasefire deal that has allowed evacuations out of eastern Aleppo was brokered by Turkey. So relations between Turkey and Russia have improved enough to make both of those things happen. That will have alarmed those who've seen Turkey as one of the greatest opponents of the Syrian president, Bashar al-Assad.
Okay.
So if you want to sabotage and jeopardize improving relations between the Syrians and the Russian backers, and someone who has been one of the most vociferous opponents of Bashar al-Assad, if you've been alarmed by that rapprochement, if you like, then this kind of attack would aim to, you would hope, split apart the Russians and the Turks again. And tomorrow, crucially, there's a meeting of Turkish, Iranian and Russian foreign ministers.
Yeah. It's been pre-scheduled.
Pre-scheduled, yeah. And it's out there on the diary, and if a group is behind this would be the moment to carry out this attack if you're trying to force a wedge between the Russians and the Turks. Now, they've come out already, the Turks and the Russians and the Iranians have said that meeting will go ahead. But that could be the motive.
Into a big problem. Many residents of East Aleppo were stranded outside waiting for evacuation. The displaced and distressed looking for warmth and safety have been a feature of every war. But this is a 21st century crisis, and all sides are using the internet. 47 orphans appealed last week for evacuation from East Aleppo in a video posted online.
We are afraid. We would really like you to help us leave Aleppo. We want to live like everyone else.
The good news is that they've got out and they're safe. So is Bana Al-Abed, the 7-year-old girl who's been tweeting her fears about what's happening.
I am sad because I leave my country. I leave my soul there.
Bana's mother, Fatma, who helped organise the tweets, talked of her sadness that they've left their home and her relief that they're safe. The evacuation has been so difficult to arrange because of all the factors that make the war in Syria so hard to solve. It isn't just a deal between those who support the regime and those who don't. It's because foreign powers who've intervened have their own rivalries that go above and beyond the war. In New York, the UN Security Council passed a new resolution calling for monitors to watch over what's happening and proper access for humanitarian aid in Aleppo. It may be too little too late, and it's not clear how soon it can be implemented, if at all.
Right now, it's an important step that I think a couple of days ago people would not have thought the Russian Federation would have allowed go through the council, but until it's implemented, it's just a piece of paper.
The Syrians, closely allied with Russia, are deeply suspicious of Western motives.
We oppose the attempts of some member states to draft and submit, under a humanitarian cover, a crafty and vague terms and loose phrases that tolerate more than one interpretation, with the intention of exploiting these resolutions to achieve hidden agendas.
The evacuation from Aleppo is happening because another set of buses is being allowed to evacuate another group of civilians from pro-regime villages besieged by rebels. All this is not the end game for this war. Many crises lie ahead. But in the 6th year of bloodshed, there is still no coherent international response that brings peace any closer. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News.
Here, a strike by post office workers has shut dozens